Good morning, I'm Mike Naso from the IPR Tropical Video Updates with the latest on the tropics. It's been a heck of a 12-hour period here in the United States along the Gulf Coast. We had a very historic landfall of a Category 4, almost a 5 hurricane on the Florida Panhandle with Hurricane Michael. Michael is now a tropical storm over Georgia, just south of Macon, and you can see it is still very well defined as far as its symmetry goes. However, since it is over land, it has weakened, thank goodness. It came in at 155 miles per hour, and that's as high as you can go on the Category 4 scale, and the damage is horrific, what we've seen so far. Areas of Mexico Beach and Port St. Joe and Panama City. We're going to see a lot worse as those pictures come in tomorrow and in the coming days. So Michael was a disastrous storm. We do have other systems in the tropics. We have Hurricane Leslie. Leslie has been out here for a long time, spinning about, and it is getting a little bit better organized, but it should remain out at sea. We have Nadine, which is weakening on the right edge of your screen here, and that is just going to continue northwest, very strong upper level winds affecting that. And we have the Caribbean here, where late season hurricanes like to brew, like we just saw. We have the potential of low pressure developing and moving west in about 4 or 5 days, and some of the computer models show that we could have another hurricane, although this one might head more towards Central America, not the US as of right now. But again, nothing's there yet, but this is the time of year, and the environment seems very warm and moist down there. Let's get the latest on Michael. This is as of 11 p.m. It's now down to a tropical storm of 70 miles an hour, and the pressure is now 975 millibars. Of course, it was 919 when it came ashore. It was the third lowest barometric pressure ever recorded in a hurricane in the United States. And by the way, when they say ever recorded, we're talking since about the Civil War. Okay? So that doesn't mean that these storms have never happened, but since we've been keeping records, and records are really only reliable in the last 50 to 60 years. Before that, they get a little sketchy. But as far as the panhandle, yeah, you guys haven't seen a hurricane like Michael probably since the early 1800s. Seriously. And hopefully it'll be another 200 years before we see one like it. You can see the forecast keeps Michael offshore as an extratropical system by Saturday night, way out over the North Atlantic. It will not make another landfall, but that does not mean we won't have gusty winds, which is why the tropical storm warnings are in effect all the way down the Carolinas into Georgia. Of course, it entered Georgia earlier this evening, yesterday evening now, as a major hurricane, and that was the first major hurricane to be over the state of Georgia in over a century. So Michael is a very historic storm. Here's the latest radar imagery out of Robins Air Force Base in Georgia, and you can see Macon, Georgia right in here, and the center of the tropical storm is now south of you, and the heaviest precipitation is definitely on the eastern side, but still a very wet rain shield, a very well organized system. Again, this was almost a Category 5 hurricane making landfall 12 hours ago. So the fact that it's still a tropical storm is not surprising at all. And again, Augusta, Orangeburg, Columbia, Greenwood, you guys are about to get into it. Athens, you're getting heavy rain, as well as Atlanta, but the heaviest does seem to be further to the south, near areas of Macon and right in the middle of the state of Georgia at this point, headed on up towards the Carolinas over the next several hours. There's the infrared satellite imagery. Again, of course, the system has weakened, but look at that symmetry. Very impressive. This storm never really weakened. When it was getting sheared, it didn't seem phased by it. And I'm going to be honest, most hurricanes do approach the Gulf Coast and peak out, like Michael did, and then weaken very rapidly. Katrina, Ivan, Dennis, multiple storms. But not all of them. Not Camille in 69, and not Michael in 2018. So again, this hurricane is going to take some studying. I know the waters were very hot. It got influenced very favorably by that front to the north. Oh, and another thing somebody pointed out, no cold fronts over the Gulf of Mexico. Anybody in the eastern U.S. knows it's been a very mild October, which happens. I think that the lack of cold fronts not only helped keep those waters super warm, but just kept it much more favorable in the Gulf of Mexico than it normally would be. I mean, personally, I thought Michael was going to slam ashore in the Big Bend as a ragged Category 2 or 3. Never in my wildest nightmares would I have forecast almost a Category 5 tightly coiled coming into the Panhandle. But that's what happened. And it happens. You can see there the tropical storm now moving right in through Macon towards Columbia, and then it'll eventually come on out. But that rain shield headed towards the Carolinas. Again, very impressive. Look at this. All the way from Buffalo all the way down to the Big Bend of Florida. Michael now stretching out as it gets captured, and it will move out. There's Leslie as of 11 p.m. Winds were 80 miles an hour, moving east-northeast at 12. It's going to circle around out here, and it should be weakening by Monday, but what a long-lived system. We've been watching Leslie out there harmlessly spinning about for 2 weeks, and it's still going to be around another 5 days, but no land areas will have to deal with it, although areas like the Azores and some of these islands close to Africa, keep an eye on it. High swells and gusty winds possible if it gets close. Nadine, we barely knew you. It's going to dissipate out by Friday and will not be a tropical cyclone anymore. So all eyes will be on whatever comes from the Western Caribbean. A medium chance right now from the Hurricane Center in the next 5 days of something heading generally in a westward direction. So we'll see. But yeah, the tropics are active for October. There's a secondary peak of the hurricane season, usually around October 10th, which is, of course, the day that Michael made its fateful landfall on the Florida Panhandle. So again, we got Leslie spinning out there. Nadine not going to be a problem. We'll watch the Caribbean, and we'll wait and see what Michael did to the Florida Panhandle in southern Georgia as an extremely devastating Category 4 hurricane. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll talk to you guys next time.